I think one of the important characteristics or traits that we need in a marriage as an individual is humility.
I think in our days, divorce is such a high thing, as everybody gives secular advice.
Continue to let your marriage grow and into what God would have it to be.
If your marriage has made it past the honeymoon stage, there's one thing inevitable, and that is conflict. Conflict is the one instance in your marriage that you're gonna get to at some point. The unfortunate part about marriage is that he don't bring his brother along. He's called solution. This is something we have to all figure out. As Christians, we go through trials and tribulations with our marriages, and we need to try to figure this thing out with God's help. Let's see what our couple say.
I'm Angela Abernathy.
I'm Willie Abernathy.
Okay. How long have you been married?
It will be 40 years this year in November.
Yeah.
What I enjoy is that I always have someone to talk to at home, and that I can be who I am and not have to worry about being judged by who I am, you know?
Well, number one, I'm with the most beautiful girl in the world. So also it's just that I can be free with her. I can be honest with her. And I can be me. I can be silly, I can be whatever. And she loves me regardless.
Demetrius Holmes.
Janelle Holmes.
Okay. How long have you been married?
This is our 20th year of marriage. What I enjoy, I guess, the most about being married is knowing that this is the one person on the face of the planet that I trust more than any other human being. And being her best friend. This is indeed my best friend.
And Genoa? What do you enjoy?
I think what I enjoy most would probably be knowing that you have someone who you could share everything with. So like the good things that happen to you, the bad things that happen to you, you have someone there that's you can enjoy all those experiences with. So it's like a built-in person.
Well, I would say that conflict in marriage would be something that everyone has. They may not always say it, but you do. And it's things that you can work around if you're willing to. So, but if you have to have a desire to want to work through your conflict and your troubles that you come with, because you're always going to have disagreements because you're different people. So
I kind of look at it in pretty much the same way, but it's a little different. It's just when there is a miscommunication in that relationship where one feels that everything is fine and the other one sees that there's a problem. And it's usually a miss in that because one of us are not paying attention. And that usually causes the conflict within a marriage.
So conflict to me, as far as it relates to marriage, I think conflict is when you're just kind of struggling to find an agreement in just really going through the everyday things of life. Marriage really is about two people coming together to go through life with, and that includes making all these decisions about just everyday stuff, raising kids and paying bills and career choices, career changes, trying to be on one page when it comes to that.
Well, I think she hit it right on the head, but to add to that, I also would say, particularly for us, we are the definition of what people say opposites attract.
Yes. Absolutely.
You could not get more opposite in personality, in upbringing, in just every way, every aspect of life. We are complete opposites.
Can you go into detail about how opposite
Oh, wow.
you are?
If you really want me to do that. Okay.
Briefly.
Okay. From little things, I'm left-handed, she's right-handed. I'm the youngest of three. She's the oldest of three. I'm the only boy in my family. She's the only girl. I was raised by a single mother. She was raised by two parents who've been together for 40 plus years.
Career choices.
Career choices, yeah. I went into education. I'm English and history. She's math and science.
Opposite schools.
I went to UCLA, so USC.
Yeah.
So I'm sugar, she's salt.
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of our taste buds.
Yes.
I'm meat. I love meat. She loves carbs. Just anything that you can think of. We're gonna be opposite on everything.
Absolutely.
And so obviously that can
It's
be.
always cold. I mean, hot.
I'm always hot.
I'm always cold.
She's always cold. I always want the air on. She always wants the heat on. So, you know, obviously in being so opposite of each other, that can lead to conflict
Right.
from time to time.
Well, what I've learned over the years is that when we don't agree, we agree to disagree. And that if it's something that he wants to do and I'm not all in on it, and he really, really wants, you know, this to happen this way, I'll let him go ahead and do it and just follow his lead. And then if it doesn't turn out the right way, then we, you know, reprocess that, whatever it is that needs to, you know, that we didn't agree on.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah. Perspective is important. Understanding that there are some things, really most arguments or most conflict that you have is not worth it to be overly concerned about winning it. For me particularly, it's more important to have peace in my home. And I value peace in our relationship, peace in my home, over winning any argument.
I'm not as apprehensive now to have the hard conversations, because now you realize that, you know, the hard conversations are really what leads to growth, you know. And then you have to because if I say that I love him, you know, part of loving someone is being truthful and honest with them, you know. And so I think what I had to learn was how to have those hard conversations, but do them in a way, in a loving way, you know, and not in a disrespectful way or in a way that's demeaning, but do it in a way in which, you know, this is a tough conversation for me to have, but it's necessary, you know. And you try to deliver whatever it is that you're saying in a way that comes across as, I'm doing this because I love and care about you.
She's the type of person that honestly, she really doesn't care what other people think about her, what their opinion is, except me. And my opinion of her, she holds in high esteem. If I criticize her in any kind of way, she takes that to heart. If anybody else does it, she doesn't care.
That's not true.
But she doesn't care as much as she cares about
Yeah.
what I have to say.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so
That's
it used to frustrate me early on that she didn't want to talk about things right away. And then as you know, as I said, as years went by and I began to learn her and understand her, I came to appreciate that. That just means that she really does care about what I think. And so having a hard conversation for her was difficult because she wasn't ready always to hear, even if it was true, what I had to say. She wasn't always ready to hear criticism coming from me. And so, you know, that means that she honestly cares about my opinion. And so I had to respect that, and I learned over time to give her space. I'm not going to make her talk about it right now. She'll come to me when she's ready. And when she does, we sit down, we have a calm conversation. You know, no yelling, no screaming, no cussing, no fussing, none of that. Calm conversation, and then we come to a resolution, and then we go to bed. I've always been a big proponent of let not the sun go down upon your wrath. That's always been my motto. And so that's what we try to do.
I may be the one that'll address it immediately. He usually has to think about it and roll it around and talk about it. I'm like
That's true.
going, head over heels into it, like, whoa, he's like, not now, Ange, not now. So, yeah.
He's much more likely to handle it immediately. I think early on in our marriage, that was actually a big source of conflict for us. I tended to feel like if something's wrong with me, you should know. I shouldn't have to tell you. And so I just wouldn't say anything, and it would build up, and it's almost like you make this mental list in your head of like, you did this, you did that, you did this. And so I wouldn't address it immediately until it was huge. And then it's like this big blow up, and he's like, where is that coming from, So I'm less likely. That has improved a lot.
Absolutely.
But I'm less likely to handle it like right there. He's much more like, let's talk about it now.
Yeah, we've been together for a very long time, and just to give you a little history, I'm 42 years old, so we met when I was 12, and we've been together since I was 16, and so early on in our relationship, we were really young, and we were teenagers, and she was the type of person that if she got angry, she would shut down and get quiet. And it could be from hours or it could be even days where she would just kind of keep to herself and be angry and not say anything. Whereas I've always been the type of person, I want to deal with it now, And but as she said, over time, we both matured, and in doing so, it's not much of a problem anymore when we have a conflict, which is not that often, but when we do, we like to talk about it immediately. And that doesn't always mean we're going to agree.
Right.
What, about a week, maybe?
No, man.
About a week.
They never go no more than, about a week. I say about that.
I stopped washing his clothes. I don't cook. Let's see. I may just look at him and go, yeah.
I'm like this. I cook my own meals.
But see, and that's the funny thing, because he'll sit around and just eat some cereal instead of getting like, oh, where's my food?
Yeah.
It don't bother him, like, oh well. So then you just go,
I can survive.
okay. So.
I didn't hire no maid. No, what I would do, and this when we first got married, I was what I would do when I get real heated, and there was times she would do things she knew how to push my buttons, and I'm even keel. I don't let people take me there, but she knew how to do it, and what I would do, instead of just going off, I go get in my car and I go driving. I'll just drive for hours. And when I come back, I'll be calm. She be still. I go straight to the room. I'll do like I normally do. I'll take my shower, get in the bed, and she'll come and say, you ain't, I said, last time I talked to her, I said, hon, if you want the best out of me, it's the way you need to talk to me. Mm-hmm. And I would talk to her calm, just like that. I said, hon, listen, if you want the best from me, if you say it the right way, I ain't gonna say I'm always gonna do it, but you will get better results from it. And she didn't know how to deal, because I would never raise my voice at her. Because I was always gonna come, but I had to leave. I couldn't stay there, because I knew one thing: fire on top of fire ain't gonna put out the fire. So if we steadily doing this, it ain't gonna fix the problem. So I said, I got to go. So I would go drive for hours. I'll drive for hours. I sit up here and fuss with myself. And I come back home and I just go calm myself down and I talk to her calmly. She'll be fussing, but I'll talk to her calmly. And she don't know how to, she didn't know how to deal with that. She was like, you know, it's almost like she's saying, why won't you fuss at me? I
But
said,
that wasn't what I said.
she didn't say it like that, but that's what she didn't say that, but she was like, you know, you was looking for a response. She was
Well,
looking
because
for-
he's always usually really calm. I mean, I remember one time we had just got our cabinets done in the house, in the kitchen, and the toaster caught on fire. And me and Brittany were going like crazy, like, oh, the kitchen's on fire, yo! He said, did you pour some bacon, or did you unplug the toaster? We're like,
I'll go and plug the
No.
toaster, take baking soda, put it
yeah,
on,
and
and
he
put the
just
fire
poured
out.
it. And me and Brittany looked at each other like, really? I mean, because he didn't get excited. It was like he was still just like, okay, well. And then go sit down. And we're looking at each other like, he didn't even get a raise, nowhere, you know?
You had to think rational when you do that, so you can't panic. So I got to the point where I just knew how to do it, and I knew, and after a while, I learned everything I do. So learn how to assess the problem. If you can assess it, you can fix it. Now, if out of your control, get out. But it was something that was not out of our control. Just unplug it, put some baking soda on it, put the fire out. And you know, because if the house burned down, we ain't got a house. So yeah, so I just knew how to calm it down.
Yes. I same thing, you know, early on when you're just trying to figure this out, like you mentioned, we've been together for a lot of years.
26.
And for 26 years. And so we were young, we were teenagers. And so we really have gone through a process of personally, you know, each as individuals, going through the process of trying to figure out who we are individually, but yet within the context of being in a relationship and then in the context of being in a marriage, you know. And so I will also say, you know, early on to me, sometimes winning was more important, you know. And I think when I think back on that, now I understand that for me, it probably wasn't so much of winning the argument, but just feeling like my point or my concerns were heard, you know. Like I just want to feel like you heard me, you understand, and you value what I'm trying to say, even if you don't necessarily agree with it, but just feeling like I was heard, you know. And so now it's not so much about winning as just hear me out, hear what I'm saying, value what I'm saying, and then if we, you know, if we don't agree, then we do have to figure out, okay, how are we going to move forward though, you know, if we don't see things the same way.
Yeah, we're not always going to agree on everything, but what we try to do is if we have a disagreement or a conflict, make sure that each person is heard, validate the person's feelings. You don't have to agree with them, but they feel how they feel. And if, for example, she says I said something or did something that hurt her feelings, I may not agree that I did that. Definitely that may not have been my intention, but in the end it doesn't matter what my intention was. If that's how she feels, I need to validate her feelings. I need to apologize for making her feel that way. And then it's her responsibility to accept my apology, and then we can go on from there and, you know, let bygones be bygones.
Oh yes. In the early years, it was third party all the way. Like, help me! I don't know what to do. Something's not right here. What is going on? Because you know, okay, we got married. I was 19. You were what? 22?
23.
22. We were young, and he came from a family. You know, everybody's still together and all that. Mine were divorced, and we went through a lot. And so, my idea of marriage was fairy tale. you know, everything's gonna be nice. The food's gonna be on the table at 5. When he walks through the door, he'll smell it, and everything was supposed to be perfect. But when I saw things weren't perfect, it was like, well, what's going on here? Why is it not like that? Why isn't he coming home and thinking everything, oh, the house looks good or whatever? And so I think I needed more counseling probably than he did. I mean, you know, he needed it because there are things he didn't see. But for me, I was just like going cucaracha. I said, this is not right. You know, so the third party was called in. I catch him in the parking lot of church. Hey, I need to talk to you. But pastor, please, you know, set us an appointment. But you know, third parties do help because sometimes you do need someone that can be objective to what, yeah.
And in addition to that, I think is a number of cases. I think maybe once, twice. You had to call Pastor Emeritus in a number of times, and I'm like one of those that I know. I'm a typical man. We go to work. We come home. Food on the table. Yeah, you got everything. Hey, give you the check. You know, go do your shopping. Do it. We think everything's fine. And Pastor pointed some things out to us that to me really. And he asked me, "Do you really think everything's fine?" And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I was coming from a family. My dad went to work. My mama handled everything else. When he come home, everything was copacetic." But see, what I didn't understand in that relationship is that when he said, "No, you need to know your wife. You going to work and being involved in everything, you're not learning her." And I'm thinking everything's fine. I missed on one important thing. She didn't want what I had, so she wanted me, and I wasn't there. It took me a while to learn it. Once I did, I had to make myself available.
We might have different answers on this. We've never done it.
Have you felt the need to?
I've never felt the need to. She might have. So I'll let her speak on that.
I think it was some points in our marriage where I think that a third party would have been good, you know. He never felt like that was necessary, and so we never did, but I think that is very wise for couples if you're having issues or, you know, you're struggling and you want to kind of figure stuff out. I think that is wise to seek a third party.
And let me qualify that statement a little bit. For me, I never had an issue with her that was big enough that I thought I needed to talk to someone else about. That doesn't mean that she didn't have any issues with anything I was doing or, you know, how I was maybe living my life or whatever it might have been, that she felt she needed to talk to someone else. And I've never told her not to.
Right.
If she wanted to, because I will say she has gone in the past to get advice from her grandmother, Sister Newman, from other sage women that we know, particularly, and I'll speak on this a little bit. I think for example, one of the sources of conflict for us over the years has been my busyness, my schedule. Me being a preacher, very dedicated high school teacher who very much involved in my students' lives. I'm not home, you know, a lot. And early on, when we had small children, that was an issue. That was an issue. And so it's not necessarily that I was out doing anything bad or wrong, but I wasn't there as much as she wanted me to be.
It was right after the 7-year mark.
It was, oh wow. It took a while.
It took a while. Yeah, because I had to learn that. If you guys remember in our meetings, I always said God had to fix me. Because I thought I was fine. I was going to church, I was involved in church, I was involved in everything in church. I was singing, everything I did was gospel. And I was serious about my Christian walk. And I said I thought I was fine. But I didn't realize that, no, you're not. You have another obligation. And I'm thinking I could still do pretty much. I mean, I was involved with GMWA, I was involved with 2 other choirs. I was also with all our church choirs. So what I ended up doing once it came to me and realized, I had to drop a lot of stuff. I mean, I had to let it all go. I got out of choirs, I got out of groups. I said, and I had to pay attention to her because I was about to lose it all.
When you are with someone who particularly works in ministry, I think that brings in a whole nother set of expectations and a whole nother set of issues that normally isn't part of most people's marriages. And so when you are married to someone who works in ministry, especially in leadership positions, it's a fine line, because you don't want to be like, you don't want to be the reason why they're not fulfilling what it is that God has called them to do. But you also deal with sometimes feelings of neglect, and not in that aspect, but just kind of like, I'm out here like by myself, And so for me, it was really trying to figure out, okay, what part of this is I should be okay with? Like, you married him as a preacher, and you knew that this comes along with it. And then not only is he a preacher, but he's a teacher, and then he's a teacher who is heavily involved in his students' lives. And so it was a lot of going here, going there, doing this, doing that. And so I think initially I just didn't really say anything. I just kind of tried to like be that supportive wife who was like, okay, I got it. But then after a while, especially when our kids were younger and smaller, and I'm working, I work as well outside the home. And so it was just, it was a lot. And so initially, after just not saying anything and figuring out like, okay, I need to say something, I went to him and we talked about it, and for him too, I think it was also hard to trying to figure out like what to pull back on, like what not to do and what to say no to. I had to, no is a word that you can say. You just say no. I can't.
I've had a hard time learning how to say no.
Well, I put myself in a position where I had nothing left but to look at her. It's like one thing I could not give up, as I couldn't give up my job. I had to go to work. The other thing is that I had to bring her to this, because I had to come to this realization to me. I said, God, help me see. Because I didn't see. She would do things, I thought she was just, it's just Ange. Ange is crazy. But I was like, what's going on? I said, okay, Lord, I'm getting out of these choirs. I'm getting out of these groups. So all I was doing was going to work and coming home. And I would either, if I went by the church every now and then to do something, I was making sure I come home. So I had to sit here and I got to analyze things. I got to sit down. I got to let myself think. And it takes a while because I don't gather things fast. So after I sat down, I actually started looking at my wife and started looking at my son and started looking at everything I had. And I said, I realized the Lord just opened my mind and said, you know something? Look at what you got. I said, what do you need all that other stuff for? And I looked at my wife, I said, this is a gorgeous woman, why am I avoiding her? And the Lord just opened my mind, and she didn't have to say anything, because she wouldn't say anything after that. I kept telling her, what's wrong, what's wrong? She's like, you don't know? I said, so the Lord opened my mind and said, you know something? It's not too late, but I have to fix you. That's what God told me. He said, I have to fix you because you're wrong. I said, what am I doing wrong? Open up your Bible. And I started reading. That's when God started opening up things to me. I said, Lord, you're right, I'm wrong. I ain't been here. So I had to bring to her, I said, because she really, I got out of a lot of things. And I was just about to stop singing in the choirs at church and all the stuff I was doing at church. I was about to just, I said, I'm gonna stop going to church. And I said, and the Lord said, you don't want to do that. You need me. I said, okay. So I told her, and this was at the point I knew she didn't care, and I knew she was upset. And I said, hon, I'm just gonna tell you like this. I'll give up everything else. But understand one thing, you're not number one in my life. And she took it back on that. And so I'm supposed to be. He said, no, you're not. God is number one. So all the stuff I do at church is for kingdom building. I said, if you don't want to be a part of me on that, then I don't blame you to leave. Because I'm not giving that up. I said, but if you would stay with me, you would love me more than you ever have
He
before.
always used to say that.
But God had to fix me. God had to fix me. I said, it ain't on her. I messed up. And I had to realize that. Once I realized that, I had to tell her, I said, God's working on me. I said, but if you want to go, I ain't gonna stop you.
And even with her frustrations with that, with me being so busy, she always remained 100% supportive of everything that I was doing. But I had to come to a realization that even though she's a loving and supportive wife, she's still a human being who needs attention and who needs my time. And so that's something that we've had to work on, and it's not always easy, but something that we've had to work on over the years that I think we've gotten better at, but it's still a tough balancing act.
It is.
So is it something that's still in the process of being resolved?
I think it always will be.
Yes, because
As long as I'm involved in
yeah,
ministry and and like I said, my job as a teacher, which I am going to be involved in ministry until the day I die. So it's going to be something that I have to keep an eye on, and that I have to be cognizant of always, to not forget about my wife.
and also if we can add to that too. I think part of what really helped in that aspect is understanding and figuring out that a lot of it we could do together.
Yes.
And so not always making it be about, oh well, he has this to do and he has to go and do that, and then but understanding that there are some parts of it that I can be involved
Right.
in as well.
So, for example, one of the things I do on my job is I help kids, seniors in high school, get into college, go to college, and so I do a lot of college trips with my students where I take them on a bus, and I'll take 50, 60 kids for 3 to 5 days and go visit colleges all over the state, all over the country. And so after a while, started inviting her with me. So she's been with me on those trips a few times now, so that we don't have to be apart so much, So including her on what I'm doing has helped quite a bit.
I believe really that he used to always tell me that he was going to pray for me because I was stepping out. I was gone. I was gone. And he would say when I leave or stay gone long or whatever, he would say stuff like, I'm going to pray for you. And that's okay, you do that. Prayer works. God can change things. And, I guess I had just really started feeling like it don't matter. He don't care, because I had tried everything. I tried to be the perfect little housewife, had the house clean, scrubbed the floors, made fresh bread from scratch. I was cooking, I was making sure when he walked through the door, everything was on the table. I was trying to look good when he came home. So I can't gotta comb my hair, gotta look good. But it wasn't doing anything, it was like, why? So being young, you do stupid things, you don't know, especially if you never had that type of example. And like I said, I came from a single parent home. So things were totally different in my mind, because I thought once you got married, everything starts to work right, but I didn't know. And it was, I believe, through him praying, and he would say, I'm gonna pray for you. I'm walking out there, I said, okay, good, see you. You know? And I believe the Lord started working on my heart too, to forgive him, to, you know, to try and love him, and really be, you know, what we were supposed to be. And that was a unit, you know, to work together. And then by him being who he was at that time, you know, praying for me and still being compassionate for me, and for me being able to go to him during that. And I believe that's when the Lord started working on my heart and allowing me to start praying more and asking him to help me. Because I really did want to be married and have my family and, you know, be happy, you know, as happy as you can be, you know, with all the things you do go through in a marriage. But at that point, you know, you're slipping on a banana peel, you need to get off the pill and get back on the sidewalk or something, right? Get on some solid foundation. And so I believe through prayer and seeking counsel too, you know, trying to get someone that was on a good plane with God and everything that you could talk to, and not listening to craziness, because there are people that'll tell you some crazy things, you know, tell you, oh girl, well, you know, you can just do this, you ain't gotta, you ain't gotta listen to him or whatever. But then you need to find those that are speaking God's word to you and telling you what is right, you know, what thus says the Lord, and even if you may be wrong at that time, to help correct you. Well, yes, I'm not one to hold grudges. We're both pretty easy going, so we might even forget what we were mad about, you know, unless it's something that's really deep. So that's not a big issue with us.
Well, I would advise them to remain faithful and patient, because you have to see that as an opportunity that God is giving you to exercise the characteristics and traits that he exercises with us each and every day. God is patient, he's loving, he's kind, long-suffering. And so if you're the spouse who is doing that, and your spouse isn't responding, then you know, you have to take that as an opportunity to just continue to exercise patience and faith, that as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, God is going to honor that in his own time.
I had co-workers, people told me, I know there was one guy, he used to tell me, he said, man, told me y'all need separate income. Y'all need separate bank accounts and stuff like that. You need to have control of your money. And I said, I had to think about that. I said, because she have her money, she working, she have her money, I have her money. I take care of this, she take care of that. That makes sense. But then I thought about it. I said, no, that don't make sense, because we are one. So how are we going to be one and our finances are split? There's something wrong with that picture. And I came home and we talked about it.
Yeah, he came home and told me, well, why is it that you don't work and you stay home and you got all the money? I'm like, huh? I said, it's our money. I said, so how are you going to tell me that? So I wasn't working at the time because our child was little and I was trying to stay home, you know. And he came home and told me that. I said, that's all right, don't worry about me. I have a job in 2 weeks, okay? You know? So I ended up getting a job, and then I was miserable because my baby, I was running the daycare, and I was worried about him all the time, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but so, he came home and tried it.
And it didn't work. Well, you got all the money. Yeah, it just me listening to people.
Willie, can you expound a little bit more on your one? Because some people who may not be Christian or understand the biblical concept of being one, can you expound on that?
Being one flesh means we're supposed to be like-minded. We're supposed to be on one accord. As Pastor Radcliffe used to always say, he quote that scripture, I'm supposed to live with her according to knowledge. It means I'm supposed to know her pretty much better than I know myself. You know, as Romans says in the Bible that what's mine, I am not my own. She owns me. and I own her. So if we are going to be one, that means we're one in Christ. And being one in Christ, that means you are not your own. You can't make your decision. You do things together because that's the unity of the relationship.
I think that the difficulty is getting to that place, and getting to the place where when you have problems or conflict, approaching it in making that your first train of thought, is approaching it not from a human perspective, or not from a perspective of I've been hurt, I've been wrong, so I want to make sure that I get what I feel like is due, but approaching it from the aspect of how would God have me to handle this situation, and if both parties are doing that, I think it makes for a wonderful example of marriage that's enjoyable, that's loving, that's fulfilling, but it's something that's not easy to do,
Right.
But I think the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
And you have to understand that your life and your marriage is an example to your children,
Yeah.
and to your friends, your family, to all those who are watching you. And so you want to try to mirror Christ as much as possible and glorify God in all that you do.
When you pray and ask God for something and you really are earnestly seeking Him, and He knows what's best for you, He already knows what His plans are for you. And so when you ask Him and you kind of like step back and not being yourself, direct you as far as what you should do or where you should be with that spouse or whatever, so that you won't do the crazy things that you might decide to do. Especially like when you're young. I mean, when you're young, you just really do some stuff. But the more that you grow in God's grace and everything, and you practice reading His Word, and you guys, study together and really worship together and praise God and stay on that same page with the Lord, it is so much better. Like now, Brittany laughs at us, our daughter laughs at us sometimes, because we can be arguing, but it's not like an argument. It's more of a joke, and so that's good, because we just laugh, about each other doing something that we normally back in the day would have been like, why did you do that? And where now it's just funny.
It is the ultimate. If you want to get the best out of your life, if you don't go to God, there's no other options, because everything else is going to lead you in the opposite direction. We got so many, I think in our days, divorce is such a high thing going on. And it's just because everybody gives secular advice, and it doesn't work. I learned from our marriage that when I sought God, and God will show you, it's plain, it's in the Bible, it's plain. And He said, if you just follow His precepts and examples, He will bless you. That's what He promised. He promised to Solomon, He promised it to Israel, and that promise also applies to us. So you can't go wrong going with God.
I would say first, making sure that you yourself, that you have a true relationship with God. You have to know Him first for yourself, and you have to establish a true relationship with Him. You can't exhibit or pass that to your spouse if you don't have it in yourself first. And so, in whatever way, whatever shape or form that works for you, having your own personal time with God. I have to know God outside of Demetrius. I have to have my own personal relationship with Him. So if that involves my time of study, my time of devotion, my time of thinking about God, my prayer is extremely important, and regular prayer, developing a regular prayer life, and so that's the first thing that has to happen. And the more that you fill yourself with God and learning His Word and reading His Word, then it becomes easier for you to then pass that on towards your spouse. If it's not here, then it can't come out.
I think one of the important characteristics or traits that we need in a marriage as an individual is humility.
Yeah.
You have to practice humility and don't take yourself so seriously or think that that you are perfect, or don't approach your marriage self-righteously as if you don't make any mistakes, or you have to be humble. We have to remember that Christ humbled himself by becoming one of us, and so that he could live the life of a human being and ultimately die on behalf of mankind. But he humbled himself in doing that. So if Christ can humble himself, then certainly I can humble myself. And sometimes that means saying I'm sorry, even when I don't think I did anything wrong. Sometimes that means forgiving, even when I feel like I may feel like the person doesn't deserve to be forgiven. But I also don't deserve to be forgiven. And so you have to maintain that sense of humility in order to continue to let your marriage grow and into what God would have it to be.
Alrighty, that's a wrap, you guys.
All right,